There was something that I saw the other day that I felt that I must share with you, to have a little bit of a hergish, a feeling, a little bit of a hergish for how Rebbe Nachman affected the Talmidim and the Talmidim of the Talmidim. So we are zeicher to have a translation of a first-hand account. The English page that you have, the side that doesn't say two on it, right? The person has to know what that one is one without it having to say on it. Where it says Evan Masel on the right hand side of the page, and the stone despised, this has come from Hashem. You see that? Yeah? Everybody have the place? So a little bit of English shall go very quickly, and then we'll continue talking about some of the tzaddikim, his talmidim, and we'll talk about Reb Naftali and Reb Nosson, Bez Hashem. Reb Pinchas Yehoshua gives a little bit of background regarding this tzaddik. Reb Pinchas Yehoshua was the son of Rabbi Isaac the scribe, a very close disciple of Rabbi Nosson. He was extremely poor, yet well known for his piety and great devotions. Once a very poor person who had no children was about to pass away. He called for Reb Pinchas Yehoshua and asked him to recite Kaddish. In return, he would leave his tefillin to Reb Pinchas Yehoshua for his son. Reb Pinchas Yehoshua agreed. A few weeks later, an extremely wealthy person, also childless, was about to pass away. He also wanted Reb Pinchas Yehoshua to recite Kaddish for him. The wealthy man was willing to leave Reb Pinchas Yehoshua enough money to support him for many years, but Reb Pinchas refused. "I am already reciting Kaddish for someone else," he told him. Reb Pinchas Yehoshua was afraid the poor person for whom he had already begun saying Kaddish might object, as his request was first. So we're talking about a great tzaddik. Remember, we're dealing here with a tzaddik who didn't actually learn by Rebbe Nachman, but it was by Rebbe Nosson. And that's why, in many ways, it's even more powerful. So what is told of this tzaddik Reb Pinchas Yehoshua? One day, Reb Pinchas Yehoshua made the pilgrimage to Rebbe Nachman's gravesite in Uman, together with the Ram Sternhartz and Ramat L'Shaichet, both of whom were very close to him. The three of them prayed there for many hours. Rav Ram Sternhartz writes, "As we turned to leave Rebbe Nachman's gravesite, Reb Pinchas Yehoshua began to tremble with great trepidation. 'My friends,' he said, 'I looked at myself and I saw that I have been reincarnated time and again into this world.' He then began detailing the various generations in which he lived. He said that he had been alive in the time of a certain Tana, and then in the generation of a particular tzaddik. As he spoke, Reb Pinchas Yehoshua weighed his every word, the tremendous truth being clear. We believed him because we knew of his greatness and his incredible devotion to God. He even told us how many times his soul had already come back to this world." Reb Pinchas Yehoshua found it was very difficult to understand why he, of all people that there were in the world, when his soul was first incarnated, why he alone should have to endure this. We need to go through so many lifetimes, so many Gilgulim. The Tana rectified other souls, why not his? Why did he have to suffer so many incarnations? Reb Pinchas Yehoshua began saying to himself, "How come my soul was left without its rectification? How come I was left in the depths, in the abyss of my sins, so that I had to come down again? Perhaps I'll be rectified the second time around." Then he told us that he came back in the generation of a different tzaddik. This tzaddik worked to rectify the Jewish souls and bring them back to their source, but again his soul was left without its tikkun, and he had to return again and again and again. I tried as hard as I could to understand why this was happening, Reb Pinchas Yehoshua continued. Finally I realized that I alone was responsible for my fate. I myself, my difficult nature and improper deeds were what made it impossible for anyone to ever provide me with a tikkun. Have I not learned in the Gemara that the tzaddikim are builders? The tzaddikim are al tikri banayich l'boinayich. That's just at the end of a few masechtas, the end of brachas. The tzaddikim are called builders. Then it must have been my fault that these righteous leaders were powerless to include me in the building of holiness which they built. So Rabbi Avram Sternhardt says to Reb Motla Shaychitz, he says, I looked at Reb Motla Shaychitz and he looked back at me. Neither of us could believe what we were hearing. We stood there transfixed as Reb Pinchas Yehoshua went on. When building a building, he said, a mason gathers all the stones that he needs for the first level of the building and begins by cutting and chipping away at the corners. He forms the stones so that each one fits properly into place. When he's finished the first level, he again gathers the stones he needs and shapes them so that he can then erect the second level. And so it goes level after level. At each level, the mason must make sure that all the stones he uses for the building are suitably formed. Many times we see that builders come across certain odd-shaped stones, which they try to use, only to find them too awkward to be made into a proper fit. In the end, they have no choice but to discard them. The same is true in spirituality. The great tzaddikim tried to build by attempting to rectify the Jewish souls. The Torah calls these souls stones. The tzaddikim work hard at this. Each stone they come across, every soul they encounter, they do their very best to fit into the building of holiness they try to erect. Reb Pinchas Yehoshua interrupted his words with a long, deep sigh. Then, with an even greater intensity, he began again. When it was my soul's turn to play its part in the building, I came before this great Tana. He attempted to correct me, but found that he could not. He worked very hard to shape me, trying all different angles. But no matter what he tried, it didn't work. As soon as he corrected me on one side, I was found to be crooked on another side. Whichever way he turned my soul, it was still impossible for him to find me a place in his building. Seeing that it was futile, this Tana just left me alone. There was absolutely nothing he could do. The exact same thing happened the second time my soul descended into this world. And so it was with every subsequent reincarnation. All the tzaddikim tried to rectify me, but their efforts failed. I was left alone through all those generations, thrown away like an odd-shaped stone to be thrown and kicked about forever. Yet God, whose kindness is forever, wants all the Jews to be rectified no matter what they've done. He saw my difficulties and sent me back to this world again. But this time in my current reincarnation, I found something completely new, a tzaddik with a building power which I had never seen before in any of my previous incarnations. This was Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. All the upper worlds tremble in fear of his greatness and his holiness. Rebbe Nachman believed that a person can always come close to God no matter how distant he was. In a strong voice he called out from the depths of his heart, never give up, never despair. This Rabbi Nachman described himself as a river which can cleanse all stains. From creation until today, there was never a tzaddik who spoke such words and with such strength and such power. And in addition to hearing about Rebbe Nachman, God gave me the privilege of knowing Rebbe Nachman's closest disciple, Reb Nosson. He taught me Rebbe Nachman's lessons and brought me to serve God. This is where I am now. And now when I think about this, and I cannot help but wonder, how, after being so distant from God all those years, how is it possible that I should merit such a great light? How could someone so undeserving come to know of Rebbe Nachman? I only understood this after I studied the Hallel. It says in the Hallel, Even Maaseh Rabbanim Haisel Reish Pina. The stone despised by all the builders became the cornerstone. This soul, the very same soul which had been discarded by all the great tzaddikim, has now come to a tzaddik who is the cornerstone, the foundation of the entire world. This has come from God. It is wonderful in our eyes. It is truly wondrous how God deals with every single soul, making certain that it achieves its tikkun. The great tzaddikim never give up trying to correct all the souls, because this is what God truly wants. I saw from all of this, Reb Pinchas Yehoshua concluded that no matter what happens to us, we must understand that there is salvation. We can always come back to God. And this is why the next words we say in the Hallel are, Zahayayim Asah Hashem, Lagilo V'nismecha Bai. This day God has made, we will rejoice. For this day, in our generation, God gave us such a great leader, Rebbe Nachman, who instilled in us the faith to always turn to God, no matter where we are. God will then redeem the Jewish people, and we will have nothing but great joy and happiness all the rest of our days. Amen. And anything like that was ever written, to ever see such a thing from a Jew. And when he tried to understand the koyach of Rabbi Nachman, which of course can't be put into any words, but to understand why is it that Davke at the end of time, Davka at the end of time, that there's such an unbelievable hisayrus to hear from Rebbe Nachman, to see his tyrus, to hear his stories. And I was thinking about how Hashgacha Pratis, that I was thanking Hashem Baruch myself after I saw this. This was in the back of the English Haggadah, that there was something, as usual, something else that I was looking for that I remembered and I wanted to show one of my children. And I came across this. And when I read it a few times, and I was thinking how personally grateful I am. What an unbelievable schus. So I remember that for many years I was learning Chassidish Sfarim for many years. I mean, for many, I'm not that old, but as far as the proportion of my life is concerned, I started to learn Chassidish Sfarim from the time that I was maybe 11 years old, 10 years old, and many times I had asked relatives of mine, the ones who were really watching what I was learning in Chassidus, what about Rebbe Nachman? Because I heard about Rebbe Nachman, and my relatives would say, Chaim Moshe, Rebbe Nachman is Zeh Grace, very, very big, but it's not for us. It's not for us. Very, very big, Zeh Grace, not for us, Nishtulans. And I accepted that. I trusted them, and they were, I'm sure, right for telling me that at that time. And it stuck with me. And then as I got older, there were different people that I met, and I would say, what about Rebbe Nachman? Same thing. Rebbe Nachman, Zeh Grace. Rebbe Nachman is very, very great, but it's too much. It's not for us. It's not for us. And then at some point, I read one of the stories, even though I had been warned so many times by very Elach Yidden about things. I read one of the stories, and I felt that I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing. That's when you enjoy something the most, right? And I read one of the stories, and that was it. And then I discovered that Zikr, 100%, it is for us. Adarabah, not only is it for us, but our generation, Evan Masu Habayim, this generation that's going to be the cornerstone of the Beis HaMikdash, our generation with all on the Zionis, that we're Dafka, the generation that's going to greet Mashiach Tzidkeinu. That Jews that it could be that Neshamas Dafka, the last Neshamas of the end of time, that have been discarded by other tzaddikim over time. It's hard to know on ourselves that we don't understand. This Reb Pinchas Yehoshua was able to see earlier lifetimes. We don't even see this lifetime that we're in at all. But the Rebbe Nachman was a river that mamish cleans all stains and removes all pagamim, all blemishes. And the whole inyan of Rebbe Nachman was to tell us not to give up, and that we could come back to Hashem Yisborach. That Davka in our generation, the last stones that are necessary to build the binyan of Kaimas Yisrael, of the Jewish people, to build the third Beis HaMikdash, that they don't fit so perfectly in our generation, especially Yidden Jews that they want to hear what Rebbe Nachman says, and other people tell them the same thing that I heard. Other people say, no, he was a very holy person, but it's not, his teachings are not for us. That Davke Haisel Reish Pina and Me'ez Hashem Haisa Zois. It's important to remember that, of course, we have tremendous zechiyah, tremendous chus, that Hashem Yisborach has brought us, that we're zeicher to be able to learn the Sfarim HaKadoshim, that even though the way that we were raised, everybody here, maybe there are one or two people an exception, but whoever was raised here was raised not in a way that we should have been exposed to the Sfarim HaKadoshim, and certainly not to the Summer of Rabbi Nachman. And there's a hashgacha pratis that the neshama drives a person, pushes a person to dafka, to connect to Rebbe Nachman's tires. The Rebbe Nachman's tires are dafka for those neshamas that are looking for that place to fit in, and they don't necessarily always fit in exactly the way that the way that this expected to fit in. Which doesn't mean to say, just like Reb Pinchas Yehoshua, we're not talking about strange or odd people. We're talking about the she'ifas that don't fit into the matzav of the world that we're in. And a person through Rebbe Nachman, a person can find a way back to Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's something that someone has to be grateful for. Obviously, we're not zeicher to call ourselves chassidim, not chassidim bechlal. Whether bechlal nowadays there are even Jews left that are called be'emes chassidim. Maybe there's a minion someplace like that. The Satmar already said that in our time we really don't know anymore. The Torah Baal Shem is not clear to us anymore exactly. But the Rebbe Nachman said that his fire would burn until Mashiach would come, and that davke before Mashiach comes, these last few minutes, that the fire is becoming even stronger and more beautiful and more and glowing and warming. That's something that we have to be grateful for. So whoever feels inside of him, inside of her, that Rebbe Nachman's stories, Rebbe Nachman's Torah, Rebbe Nachman's life has a special way of pulling you. So it might not be far-fetched to say that maybe we have something in a tiny little bit, in a tiny little way in common with that tzaddik Reb Pinchas Yehoshua, that for some reason it could be that over the generations there are souls that just don't find peace until they come to Rebbe Nachman. That's a dover yadu, it's known. The neshamas that can't find menucha until they come to Rebbe Nachman. Rebbe Nachman was very, very, very big. And all the tzaddikim, of course, all the tzaddikim are great. But the way that Rebbe Nachman called out to Jews at the end of time is a chiddush, is something different, is something new. We're going to talk more about it as Hashem. And there's a hisayrus now. There's a hisayrus all over, unbelievable hisayrus.